Imagine a country so rich, its primary natural resource is measured not in barrels, but in oceans. Venezuela sits atop the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, a subterranean sea of black gold that once promised a future of limitless prosperity, and for a time, it delivered. In the 1970s, during the oil embargo, Venezuela was the rich neighbor. Its capital, Caracas, was a soaring, modern marvel. The money flowed so freely it was given a name, La Saudita, the little Saudi Arabia of the Americas. The dream was simple. The oil would fund everything, forever. But this was the birth of the paradox, a nation built not on a foundation but on a single volatile pillar. In 1976, Venezuela made a fateful choice. It nationalized its oil industry. The state-owned company, PDVSA, would now be the engine of the nation. The wealth would belong to the people. But this created a dangerous pact. The government's survival became directly tied to the price of a single commodity. When oil prices were high, the state lavished money on subsidies, social programs, and grand projects. It abolished income tax. Why tax people when you have oil? But when prices crashed, as they always do, the state had no other muscle. No diversified economy, no tax base, just empty promises. Enter Hugo Chavez. Elected in 1998 on a wave of fury against the corrupt old elites, he vowed to use the oil wealth for the poor. And for a while, it worked. In the early 2000s, oil soared past $100 a barrel. Chavez funded massive missions, healthcare, education, food subsidies. Poverty rates plummeted. But Chavez, facing a hostile strike from PDVSA's technical elite, made a catastrophic decision. He purged the company, replacing engineers with political loyalists. The brain drain began. Efficiency and investment collapsed. The golden goose was being gutted for parts. The timing was a perfect storm. When Chavez died in 2013 and Nicolas Maduro took over, the party was already ending. Global oil prices crashed by over 70%. The single pillar holding up Venezuela shattered, and the state, with no other income, faced an impossible choice: admit failure or print money. What followed was a textbook economic death spiral. To pay its bills, the government printed money. Hyperinflation ignited. At its peak, prices doubled every few weeks. The currency became confetti. With no hard currency from oil, Venezuela could not import food or medicine. The socialist system of price controls meant to help the poor backfired. Farmers couldn't produce at state-mandated hyperinflated prices. The shelves emptied. The once wealthy oil nation was now scouring the world for food aid. This is the human cost of the paradox. The wealth was never real. It was a credit line against future oil, spent by generations of politicians. And when the bill came due, it was the people who paid with their hunger, their health, and their exodus. So where does the paradox stand today? The oil is still there. The reserves are still the largest in the world. But the machinery is rusting, the expertise is gone, and the trust is shattered. The wealth beneath the ground mocks the poverty on the surface. Venezuela's story is the ultimate warning against a resource curse. It's a lesson in the danger of betting a nation's soul on a single commodity and in the tragic fragility of a dream bought on credit.